Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. It's often remarked how incredible the pyramids are because of how many blocks they had to move into place over a certain amount of time. And scientists have come up with all sorts of ways that they could have possibly done that, including floating them up there on water, um, using water to lubricate the sand, and that way they could roll the bricks, roll the stones up there. But you know what? This is actually one of the least interesting things about the pyramids, and indeed ancient architecture in general. There's one truth about building something that holds true throughout time. And anybody out there who's built anything serious, like a dog kennel, you can probably get away without it, but a house or anything, what's the number one thing you need to make sure? Your ground must be level. Somebody leveled the Giza Plateau. That's right, underneath the pyramids, somebody took the time to make sure that whole face of rock was 0 degrees. No elevation, or what elevation there is practically negligible. And this is why we have to rethink the process of pyramid building. Now, I don't doubt the ancients took advantage of techniques like watering some skids and pushing the boulders up. But what about leveling? So you get an ancient king, and I don't care whether he's a Mesopotamian king, an Egyptian pharaoh, a Sumerian king. They're all different time periods. I know that. But they had to start with a level basis. This impacts the pyramids because it means no pharaoh, no single pharaoh could have possibly achieved this in their lifetime. Either a set of pharaohs worked on clearing the plateau before they started building, or if we accept that, as pharaohs and modern politicians are wont to do, they put their name on whatever's built and finished being building during their realm. You know, modern politicians, their predecessor commissioned a hydroelectric dam. But when it comes time to open it, it's 10 years later. That's been 2 election cycles. They'll go up and the name of this city, this town, this government, whatever it is, I open this hydroelectric dam, and then they use their big scissors, and the ribbon comes down. I did. Not the guy who put it up, not the guy who planned it, not the construction workers, the guy in charge. Do you think the ancient Egyptians were so alien that they didn't practice something similar? And scientists are killing themselves to come with explanations on how this could be done in one person's lifetime. Well, one man's lifetime. So let's say 60 years per pyramid. And as soon as you're done one, you have to start building the other. As soon as you're done that, you have to start building the other. And I think there was another one who built his pyramid somewhere entirely different. Well, this doesn't make sense. While Egypt did have a substantial labor pool, either you had to plan the pyramids all at once, because like I said, you got to level that whole plateau, and that's a big architecture plan. We're going to have a big, well, I think it was a ritual center, to be honest. We're going to have a big ritual center with 3 pyramids. You know, pyramids, three angles and 3 pyramids. Yeah, pretty good, for some symbolism and stuff like that. But it also shows It can't have been done within one pharaoh's lifetime. And it's no shame to say, um, was it Strabo got it wrong because there were mistranslations from Egyptian sources all the time. I'm not saying Strabo was bad at what his job. I'm just saying he understood that it was built by Pharaoh, you know, whoever. And he recorded that. And he wanted to make the Pharaoh sound great because Egypt has always been glamorous. It's the France of the ancient world. The people aren't necessarily glamorous, but they're intended to be. So you have this roadmap because once you level one part, it's really difficult to level a second part to the first part and then a third part for 3 pyramids. You'd have to level them all to the first one, and that's just an impossible task. But what about if we extend the time frame? What about if we allow this to take place over a couple hundred years? Now, leveling everything, putting the pyramids up at a much more leisurely pace, and having a purpose of it besides burying a pharaoh, because no pharaoh was ever buried in any pyramid in Egypt. So they're not burial crypts, but they make for a great mystery religion. Depending on how you look at them, there's the crypt where the supposed coffin was supposed to be. Now imagine a mystery religion which was all the rage, and it might actually have been devoted to Isis, because Isis was known to have risen from the underworld. So you take your candidates down, whether it's for priesthood, whether it's for, office, whatever it is, and maybe you run this a couple times a year. They're taken into the crypt. Then they're taken up to the queen's chamber. This is our word for it. We don't really know what they called it. And they're shown that they've been saved from death, and they're rising up. And then they're taken into the king's chamber, which is by a very ornate stone chamber or stone hallway into the king's chamber. Now you have risen to be one of the elite, to be whatever you need those people to be. And since you have this wonderful necropolis and level plateau outside, you can have a whole festival going on. Part of the education can be this is the tomb of the mighty builder, whomever. Sorry, it's been 3,000 years. We've lost the records of who is who. But doesn't that make a heck of a lot more sense than a pharaoh spending the time, resources, and everything to erect a tomb that he's never going to be in? He's got his own place in the Valley of the Kings. So why would he build? Oh, it's to fake out the grave robbers. No, the pyramids were well known in ancient times. It's only the rough patch between the fall of the Roman Empire and the rise of the Holy Roman Empire, which was neither holy nor Roman, that we lost a lot of the knowledge. The Muslim caliph was the first to go exploring using gunpowder, so not quite dynamite, but stuff to shake the rocks loose, and he was the first in centuries to make his way through. He didn't report finding any bodies. So what happened to these so-called bodies? Well, it wasn't a tomb. So if we accept this was a ritual center, its construction went on for longer than one person's lifetime, which makes it much more plausible, and most importantly, the fact that no one was ever buried there, we come up with a ritual center. As I said, Isis had a very strong connection to Egypt, and we still have rituals today that have you being reborn out of the ground. It's a very powerful moment in life, whether you're a born again Christian, whether you're, There's all sorts of sects of places. Sects, S-E-C-T-S, just in case I'm mumbling. And that shows us that the Egyptian pyramids were not simple tombs of a megalomaniac. They were the dreams of the people, and it would have been a lot better sell for the pharaoh to say, hey, we're building this so that we can have, a proper temple. This is something very common in the ancient world and even the modern world. You can get people to do more if it's for a ritual center, a massive temple, a complex. Let me turn to Mesopotamia for an instant. This is even more interesting because they kind of went the opposite route. They did do some leveling, but their stonework was astonishing. The stones are so tight, they say that you can't put a piece of paper between the pyramid's stones. You can't do that either in Mesopotamia. And they weren't even using common bricks and piling them up. They were custom fitting these bricks one by one. That takes a master craftsman in any day and age. But they did it. Again, we don't know how long it took them. And I suspect, well, some of them seem to be forts, some of them seem to be, you know, monasteries or their equivalent of. So the mystery of Egypt takes on a whole different perspective when you look at the Mesopotamian ziggurats and I always get my Aztecs and Toltecs and all that messed up. I'm just going to say Aztec and correct me if I'm wrong. But the Aztec, who are building incredibly ornate structures, which they do have pyramids, and there do seem to have been burials within them. But again, that's also something people did. You would bury somebody in a grave so that way they would protect the crypt around them, the holy place, whatever it was. This is well known to us. Of course, a king or a queen would not do that. It would be somebody more common, although you could still have the nobility do it because it's an honor, but kings and queens and emperors and empresses have their own honors that they're already going to get. They don't need to be saddled with this in the afterlife because they got to be hobnobbing with the other gods. So give this some thought the next time you think about Egypt. Just the leveling alone disproves it was done by any single pharaoh. And it's much more likely the three pharaohs that are listed as the ones who built them. Yeah, it's one of the perks of being the ruler that you get to sign your name to the bottom line whenever it's done, and you don't need to give credit to anybody. This is also based on the inventory stela, which people are taking credit for all sorts of things. The Sphinx was rebuilt, and it's listed on the stela, but it doesn't say how long it took them to rebuild it. And we're not entirely sure, definitely reshaping the head and stuff like that, but it definitely was already there. We know that because of simple geology. But the Sphinx is a mystery unto itself. I'm going to keep with megalithic temples and stuff. Quickly, let's look at Stonehenge. It was erected in several phases over possibly 1,000 years. It started off as a simple circle of stones. It then became a circle of wood posts. And then they put the big rocks up there. They were blown down and then they were resurrected in the 1800s when people became interested in Druids again because it was thought the Druids were the ones who put it up. Turns out they weren't. But they aligned everything. When they planted everything, it was leveled. And they never claimed one person. It wasn't Merlin who put it together, although some fables did attribute that to Merlin because he was such a well-known figure. And that's another tendency. If you have one person who's well-known, say Robin Hood, myths get attributed to him even though he didn't actually exist. Or if he did, he isn't the Robin Hood that we know in fiction. So lots to think about there. I should really talk about the megalithic stuff more. It's something that I'm intensely fascinated by, and the construction process is not as mysterious as people make it out to be. So with that, we wish to thank you for joining us on the Silverlight Show. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, because sharing is caring. Give us a subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And if you turn on the notification bell, that would be appreciated. Thank you very much and have a great day.